Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to BikeSocial. I'm Michael Mann. And when you're buying your next motorbike, whether it's new or whether it's second-hand, you're probably going to have a little checklist of things you're looking at, whether it's price, power, performance, practicality, ease of use, comfort, style. In this video, I think we've got a new contender for your cash. It's the 2022 Suzuki GSX-S1000GT. Paul, thank you so much for inviting me down here to see your brand new baby. There she is. In fact, matches mine top, doesn't she? Yeah. It's nice that you've done it in BikeSocial blue. Thank you very much for that. Yeah. But design, let's start with design, because look at that. One of the first things I noticed when I first laid my eyes on it in the photographs and here in the flesh was actually the sort of more aerodynamic styling to it all. It swoops, doesn't it? It's quite accentuated. Obviously deliberate.
Yes, I think so. We wanted to create a new face for this model so that you can see that it is a new bike and it's a sector of the market that we haven't been in recent times, so it's really nice to make that statement about that. And I think also because you can embrace things like LED headlights and some of the technology that comes from MotoGP, just some of the influences like the wings and stuff which are there as a nod to MotoGP and our heritage in that area as well. So it's nice to have those styling, but lots of practical elements too, because of course this is a sports tourer, so we really want to be able to make it a practical bike while being stylish. I think the guys at head office have done a fantastic job of that.
The position of the bike, clearly a GT, it's why it's called a GT or an ST sports tourer. I don't want to talk about it being a replacement to the F, the GSX-S1000F, but it's kind of along those lines, isn't it?
I think it's in many ways a very different bike to that. And I think really this is a partner to our naked GSX-S1000, and this is a bike with a comfortable pillion seat, room for a pillion, integrated luggage, touring device, sort of screen and things. So it's quite a different bike to anything we've had in the range before. So I think really it is all new from that point of view. And so that's in many ways why it's so exciting for us, because it is a part of the motorcycle market that we didn't have a product for our customers before. So I'm just delighted to have it now.
It's nice to be able to give the customers a different type of Suzuki to ones that we've already been used to. Yeah. But it still uses a lot of the elements, doesn't it, as the S?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it takes the strong things. We've got a fantastic chassis and engine there already, and they are, sports bike derived kind of performance levels. And I think, although you can talk about this as a sports tourer, I've ridden this bike, and I'd like to think of it as a sports tourer. It is not just a normal sports tourer, but it is a sports tourer with proper sporting abilities.
Because of course it doesn't actually come with this model particularly. It's got the panniers on it, doesn't it?
Yeah, the panniers are optional, and I think for a lot of customers they're going to make a choice depending on where they're riding, when they're riding. That's going to say, actually, I don't need the panniers, or I'm going to have panniers, but this weekend I'm out with my mates. I'm going to go and scrape the tyres and things and have some fun. Leave the panniers at home. Another weekend I'm taking a pillion, and we're off going to go and have a bit of a journey. So I think that's the way it works in both ways.
So it's practical and it's comfortable by the looks of things too. You've got a fair bit of a good saddle there. In terms of practicality, so you talk about going off with your mates perhaps at the weekend and leaving the panniers behind, and it's got the power, hasn't it, to go with it? It's
152 PS, so it's got a nice powerful engine with plenty of torque to go with that as well. And you and I both know this engine well, Michael. This is a really nice engine with plenty of power there, so you can certainly enjoy that ability of the bike. But of course what has to go with that is the handling. And because of the great chassis that it's got and the way the engineers developed it, you can really use that, despite the fact that then if you want to take your partner as a pillion ride somewhere, you can.
Are any of the components within the engine different to the S?
No, it's the same engine plant from that point of view. We think that's just the perfect model to take across those two things.
And it's got different riding modes, hasn't it? So you can kind of alter the...
Yeah, you've got different riding modes. There's 3 riding modes, A, B and C, all of them delivering the full power, but just giving you a different map depending on the riding conditions and how you want to ride. And you've also got kind of 5 traction control modes as well. So you've got lots of choices that you can make there around how you're riding the bike.
Talk a little bit about the price and availability, when people can get their hands on it, when they can see it.
Yeah, okay, so all the information about the bike's on our website now. Pricing is 11,599 RRP. Which I think is a very keen price for this sort of level of bike and standard of bike. And it's going to be in our dealerships by the end of November. So really quite soon.
Excellent, and it's a 2022 model.
Yeah.
Brilliant. There's a lot there, isn't there, for your money? It's a really good price point, and does that undercut some of the competition, I think?
I think we like to think that we are competitive in the marketplace. I think it's one of the things that Suzuki always does is offer our customers great value for money, and we're continuing to do that with this bike. But you're getting a great specification bike for that as well. So I think a bike you can be really proud to own, but with typical Suzuki value there as well.
Perfect. Excellent. Thank you, Paul. We're going to talk to your colleague Steve now about some of the more finer details.
Great stuff.
Cheers.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
So joining me now, Steve Hacklett. Steve, hi. Thanks very much for joining me and talking about your new toy. Steve's the product planning manager for Suzuki GB. Steve, you know this thing inside out, don't you? And it falls, we were just talking off camera, it falls now into sort of several different combinations, doesn't it? Shall we start with performance? Well, Paul's already mentioned 150 PS, so 150 brake horsepower approximately, isn't it? And that's about 11,000 RPM, is that right?
Yeah, that's right.
And torque, have you got torque figures to hand?
Yes, I think there's two key things. Obviously, the spec sheet's always useful for comparison and contrasting. So you got 106 Newton meters of peak power, but with this power plant, it's the breadth and it's the spread of the torque. It's been a real focus for this motor, and because of the versatility of the machine, whether you're sporty one-up riding, whether you're putting the optional panniers on, whether you're taking a pillion, it's that spread of torque and the kind of riding that it enables. So lazier gear shifts and just really rewarding riding, so you can just enjoy the roads and the great scenery in front of you.
So I'm going to try and extract as much information as I can out of you. The quick shifter, you just mentioned gear shifting, that is a quick shifter up and down, isn't it? Auto blipper. And
Yeah, correct. So the nomenclature we use is bi-directional quick shifter.
bi-directional.
But essentially the main thing is it's up and down and seamless, consistent. So you get all the benefits from the touring side of it in terms of not repeated clutch use on longer journeys or if you get caught up in traffic. But then the performance aspect, it's one of the keystones for this bike is the performance capability if you do decide to ride it in a sportier fashion, particularly one up, and the fact that you've got those full throttle upshifts, and again just that seamless consistency you get from the gearbox and that setup.
I think a natural progression would therefore be talking about rider modes. How many are there and what do they change?
Okay, so the different electronic systems you've got over and above the quick shifter, you've got standalone power modes, so you've got 3 different modes, A, B and C, so just the ability to have a really direct one that will respond faithfully to your inputs and be a very, very sporty one that's perfect for riders that are familiar with sports bikes or are riding on dry roads. And then you've got a progressive softening basically, so for the same input you're getting less response in terms of power and torque and aggression from the engine. So if you're not as comfortable with that response, or critically you're on damper roads, then you get a softer response. Beyond that, traction control, so the other end of the spectrum, so you've got 5 different modes, so you can get the specific ones for your rider preference and again the conditions, and the ability to disengage it as well.
Okay, you can turn it off too, good. And I noticed cruise control on this, and that's new, isn't it?
Yeah, so pivotal. So we've got it on other bikes in our range, like the 1050 XT and the Hayabusa, but again, because of the mileage capability of this type of machine as well, an absolute essential is the electronic cruise control. So again, you can just eat up those motorway miles in comfort and just have less movement.
Riders are they're going to expect that, aren't they? Of course,
Yes.
with a touring machine. And what about range? If you're talking about touring, what about the fuel tank size and about the range? I noticed the panniers are on this one behind us, they're optional extra, but they're meaty old things, aren't they? Presumably you can get a full face helmet in those.
Yeah, indeed. So just to touch on the fuel tank, there's a careful balance because it is a sports tourer, so it's got to do the distance, but it still needs to look aesthetically pleasing as well. So it's got a 19-litre tank on it. It's got 46.31 mpg. The good news is what we're tending to find is with the new Euro 5 standard, the claimed fuel consumption figure is based on a cold engine. So actually the real world figures you see tend to be, obviously riding styles vary, tend to actually be better than the claimed figure. So you're looking at 190 miles plus off of each tank. And then talking about literage, yeah, the panniers. Again, a careful balance to strike. Obviously you want cavernous storage to help make full use of that range and the touring capability of the bike. But these are, for us, classed as integrated ones as well. So you still get quite a svelte design and colour matched as well, but you still got 36 litres. So for most styles of lid, you can get a large full face lid in each helmet still.
So there's plenty of practicality on that. And we were just talking a second going to go about the practicality of, or the ease of use of the instrument cluster and its connection with the brand new display.
Yeah, so as we were saying before, I think the ever-increasing amounts of technology on any bike are a challenge for a manufacturer to make sure they add to the riding experience and don't hinder it. And I think it's something Suzuki are very good at, adding in what's essential and supports the riding experience, but making it intuitive and easy to use. And the latest set of electronics adds a whole new layer. So as you say, we've got smartphone connectivity. So we've got things like maps, weather. You can access your contacts, you can make and receive calls, and you can access your music as well.
And that's new, isn't it?
Yep, so all of that will happen via the Suzuki MySpin app, which will be available for iOS and for Android. And then with that tethering, you'll access it all through the brand new instrument display as well, which is a 6.5-inch full colour TFT readout. So you've got all your usual electronic settings, your road speed, your gear position, and then all the other functions that I've just mentioned from the smartphone connectivity as well.
Very smart. And that's called what? MySpin?
MySpin, yeah, Suzuki MySpin is what it's called. And one of the nice things as well is both the software and the actual hardware itself, even things like the instruments, they're motorcycle bespoke. A lot of systems are either fully or partially come over from the car world, but things like anti-glare, anti-scratch coatings on the screen and just the way the whole system works is motorcycle first and foremost.
So it gives you all the options that you would normally have on your phone. So you can make and receive calls, listen to music, but then you'd need the relevant...
Yeah, so for the audio element of it, you're going to need a third-party Bluetooth item to be able to literally speak on the call or to listen to the music. Likewise, if you've got those pieces of hardware, it means that you can communicate with your pillion as well, and you've got statuses for connectivity on the dash for those items as well.
And in terms of other elements that one would perhaps normally look at on a spec sheet, things like wheels, tyres, brakes and suspension, do you want to just have a talk through about what they are?
So I think it's a key follow-up to the bike. As you say, we've mentioned the phrase sport touring a lot, so it's finding the correct balance between sort of touring and comfort potential, but sport. And I think this bike is undoubtedly at the sportier end of sports touring, so it's got all the distance and range capability that you'd want on it, but then it has got the advantage of having good sporty capabilities as well. So we touched on the engine and some of the chassis dynamics, but then the specifics of those parts back it up as well. So on the suspension side, you've got fully adjustable KYB forks at the front, and then you've got adjustability on the rear for preload and for rebound as well. The brakes, we've got Brembo calipers up front, so plenty of stopping power there as well. Tyres are the Sport Max 2 Dunlops, and it's a bespoke blend for the GSX-S range as well. So although there is an off-the-shelf tyre that's available, there is a specific one for this that was developed in conjunction with the bike. So it's a slightly different compound and construction, and you just get the best in terms of warm-up time and usability in wet conditions and things like that as well. So really well suited for a bike of this type.
So what about the handling, the characteristics and the chassis particularly? You mentioned about the chassis. The front frame must be the same as the GSX-S1000. The subframe?
Yeah, so the key differential is at the rear, so that ability to take the hard luggage, so that is where you have got a differential. So it does affect things like the ready-to-ride weight, so 226 kilos on this bike, but what people will find is for the class, whether you look at just the dry spec figure on the spec sheet at 226, or you go to a dealer and take one for a test ride, is dynamically, it'll be a very, very capable bike. This is where I alluded to before, saying at the sportier end of sports touring, it's not to say that it's a monofaceted bike where it's only sporty. It can do everything, but the sportier side is where it will really, really shine because of that engine, because of that torque, the dynamism of the chassis, and that relatively lightweight for a bike in this class as well.
There's a lot of information we've taken in there, Steve. I haven't missed anything obvious, have I?
The only other things, just even little details on the comfort, things like the fact the handlebars are rubber mounted and there's rubber inserts that are in the rider foot pegs. And again, it's just to dial out just that little bit of buzz that when you're using the bike over a number of days, rather than maybe just a quick spin solo on an afternoon, means it'll help deaden out some of the road buzz of those sort of rough UK roads and mean that you can just do mile after mile in comfort.
And what about a range of accessories? No bike is new to the market now without a full suite of everything. thing. Presumably it's the same thing for the GT.
Indeed, the absolute critical one is that optional luggage. The fact that that is there for people if they want it. Believe it or not, there is quite a bit of variation. Once you stray from the UK shores, I think most people in the UK will want the hard luggage option.
I would agree.
But in Europe, it's surprising how many people will buy this type of bike and they don't always buy or use the luggage from research we've seen in the past. So that one's key. For added comfort, you've got things like the heated grip option. There is a touring screen, so the bodywork and the standard screen have been heavily developed in the wind tunnel for aero performance and aesthetics, but the touring screen adds an extra 70mm of height, which will give quite a bit of extra protection if you want to go down a more touring focused route. You've got some additional luggage options with soft luggage, things like tank bags. On the protection side as well, you've also got things like tank pads, and then for styling, some carbon alternatives and rim tapes and things like that. So plenty to choose from, either practical or personalisation.
And how many colours are there?
So 3. So the bike that we've got behind us is the metallic Triton Blue, so it's our kind of signature brand colour that you see.
No, you got it wrong. I think it's called BikeSocial Blue.
Indeed, yeah. So yeah, as per what's on our sort of championship winning MotoGP machinery, and then you've got 2 darker options. So there's quite a luxurious metallic reflective blue, which is a little bit more synonymous with sports touring, and then glass sparkle black, so the quintessential gloss black option for those that like a fully stealth bike.
Fantastic. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
It's been a pleasure. Hope you've enjoyed it. Any questions, any comments, any thoughts, put them in the section below, and we'll, if I can't answer them, which I probably can't, then I'll ask Steve, because he probably can. Thanks for joining us. See you next time. Yay!